Hello and welcome to Successful Not Satisfied. Here is the podcast where we interview executives, CEOs, and business owners, much like you, who are trying to figure out how to make it all work, make it go, and dealing with the daily challenges that most businesses face. Here you're going to learn about what they're doing to overcome those challenges, and hopefully you'll get some ideas to help your own company. So check it out, Successful Not Satisfied. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to Successful Not Satisfied. I am here with Stacey Martin of Stacey Martin Lifestyle. Stacey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am wonderful. And you hail from Ottawa, Canada area?
Ottawa, Canada. That's right.
Great. Well, we are now an international podcast. We've got guests from all over the place coming on. Well, thank you again for joining me today. Want to learn a little bit more about your business. We met online through LinkedIn, and you've been doing some pretty wonderful stuff out there. So I wanted to talk about that. You've actually grown your business through investment. It's more of a startup. So I'd like to hear kind of what your business is all about.
Yes. So Stacey Martin Lifestyle is a Canadian eco-conscious looks loungewear apparel company. So really it's about bridging the gap between fitness and fashion apparel. So I started my company when I was a dancer on Broadway. I used to live in New York City and I danced in New York. And I was living there. I would see women who looked so beautiful in their clothing, but I knew they were so uncomfortable. So I really wanted to say, why can't they be beautiful and comfortable at the same time? Why does fashion clothes have to be so uncomfortable? So I started making my own clothes pretty much out of sweatshirt and t-shirt fabrics. And it was started as a labor of love, just as a hobby while I was a performing artist, and it went really well. And I recently rebranded to Stacey Martin Lifestyle, and that happened right in the middle of the pandemic. So it's been a crazy, crazy ride, and that's where I am right now.
So why don't you talk about that? I mean, it's got to be interesting, starting or building a company in a pandemic. What did you have to do differently related to this? Was it well received by a lot of people, or what did you do to let people know you were out there?
Yeah, so my company had been running it for years. And like I said, it was more of a glorified hobby doing trade shows and whatnot. So it was already in the midst of rebranding before it started. I was already ready to take it to the next level. But when the pandemic hit, all my revenue streams closed. So my trade shows, wholesales, in-store, I have a storefront, my storefront closed. Everything that I did was closed. And so it made me reevaluate how I was going to rebrand my company. So as much as it was really difficult going through COVID, it helped me to really shift and know exactly the direction I wanted to go during the rebrand, because I knew that online sales, I knew that social media marketing, I knew that this international talking that we're doing right now is kind of the way of the world. But having COVID come at that time really amplified that and made me realize that this is what's necessary and what I actually have to do.
So what was really your first step in it all?
So the first step was to sit and say, what am I going to do? And that's the honest to goodness truth. I mean, I sat there thinking, how am I going to, what on earth? Because I've been running for years from in-person contacts, by talking to people, them coming into my storefront, going to trade shows. It took a moment. It took a lot of a moment to understand what is possible. And then I started to look at, I have to know how I can reach the most amount of people, and that's through the online spectrum. And so with that being said, I then went for the equity capital raise, which on top of doing a full rebrand is another pivot and shift, which is crazy that I did, was I thought I need to raise capital for this company in order to really scale, to be able to compete with the top leaders in the fashion industry. And I was like, I'm going to do this the way that I know best, and this is through community and through people around me. So that's what I did.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Raising capital again during a pandemic for a lifestyle brand, for a clothing brand, might be a little tricky, I would imagine. I mean,
it's not to even think it's possible.
Yeah. So what were the steps to do that? I mean, I've worked with companies that have gone through capital raises, and it's not an easy process in a normal environment, let alone, what we're going through right now. So what were the steps to really kind of make all that happen?
Yeah, so I guess the first step would be that I've been running the company and the company was successful. I'd made over $1 million in sales. So I knew there was a good proof of concept. I knew that people wanted the products that I had, but I didn't understand why I would see these other companies that were scaling that that I wasn't. I'm like, why, what are they doing differently? Why are they now in every airport? Why are they everywhere that you look? Why can't I get there? And why can't hustle and drive just be the thing? I got a business advisor who I've been working with for the last 2 years, and he really educated me on there is part hustle and drive, but there's also raising capital for your company to have capital to work with, not just snowballing on the money that we have. So when the pandemic happened, I thought, now's the time to raise that capital. And when I went to go through the traditional routes of venture capital funding, I realized that I'm at a huge disadvantage because Black females only have 0.2% chance of getting funded in the traditional manner. And I thought, well, I have to gain capital. This is the only way to scale a company, but I can't do it that way. So I found a company called Front Funder. They're out of Vancouver. There's many different other companies as well, but Front Funder is a company that has a platform that allows anybody, any entrepreneur who wants to raise capital for their company to be able to do it on their platform. So regular retail investors can invest in the brand they love just by investing. We had it as low as $250. People were able to invest into the company to build it. And with their investment, they get equity into the brand.
That's cool. So you said they get equity. How much equity can they get? How much are you giving up as far as the investment goes?
Yeah, so I was only giving up a total of $250,000. So that's where I was. And we have a $5.5 million pre-money valuation. So that was about 4 point something percent. And that's where we were. That was what I was willing to give up from the crowd at this moment.
Got it. How did you come up with the valuation? I mean, people watch things like Shark Tank, and they always hear about valuations. And of course, the guys on Shark Tank are, oh, that's way too high. That's not possible. How do you come up with 5.5 million? What's the calculation?
Yeah, so it's basically based on a couple things, the metrics that they put together with my lawyer, my CFO as well. So basically looking at the proof of concept that we had. So knowing that the product has sold. We had $1 million of sales. That was one of the big metrics. Also, my business advisor is, he's strong. So it's a strong leader that I have as part of my team, he's a shareholder in the brand, which was also part of the metric. And it's also looking at the landscape of what the companies are, the comparables in the brand that in other brands that are sustainable, eco-conscious. They put together all of these pieces to be able to say, how does this company get to a valuation that you believe in? And then once you have people invest in that amount, you have value for that product. It's like, I say the loose way of saying is you can have 3 different types of cars. Once you price that car, you have value in the car based on what you've put into it. But once we have buyers willing to pay into it, that really solidifies the price of the value of what that is.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to raise that capital?
3 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that try to raise that in 3 years and have difficulty.
We had 3 months. So I did 2 capital raises, I guess specifically. I did one with just 2 people that was in August of last year, 2020. And then I did the equity crowdfunding raise, which was just ended just last week. So we had 90 days to do the raise. It was a crazy journey, emotional roller coaster for sure. But we ended up having over 165 new investors and investors from all walks of life, investing from as low as $250 to $25,000.
So how'd you go about marketing? Somebody had to see this. I'm sure you had maybe friends and family that made investments, but any sort of crowdfunding like that, the trick is getting the word out. How'd you manage to do that?
I have a lot of followers. I would say, when I first went to do it, I was under the impression that the moment, because I have a good level of following, because I've been doing this for a while, I kind of assumed that once I tell people that they can invest for $250, that they would just jump at it. But there was a huge educational component that I didn't take into account. I figured people will buy a sweater for $200, so they would, of course, want to invest for $250 and still get a product. We were giving perks of a product as well. So I thought they're winning, but there was an educational component that I realized that is not being told. The same story of the girl who can't get invested in because I don't have that opportunity. The same story that the investors don't have the opportunity to invest in things. So they didn't have an idea of what it means to be a shareholder, about what it means to have. So educating that was a lot. So the marketing was really at the beginning was just about education on what being an investor is. how much a share is, what that means when you have shares in the company. Like it was a lot of that first. And basically the thing that worked was reaching out to everybody I know. Everybody I know. So sorry if you didn't like me. It's amazing. But it was really about just everyone I know saying, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. This is your opportunity to get involved. And I'd give an example of Lululemon. They're one of the competitors that I see has done amazing in this space. And $1,000 into Lululemon in a 10-year span went to $20,000 just in that 10 years. So people were able to get kind of a concept of understanding what that means to invest. And if they were to invest $1,000, how it can scale. Obviously they can lose their money, but they can also see how it can gain.
That's awesome. Are you feeling like a prisoner in your own business? And what I mean by that is you spent all your time growing this company and you've gotten it to a point where it should be functioning on its own, but you still find yourself doing more than you should. You're getting way more in the details and you're getting stuck working on things that you have the staff and the team to actually solve for you. If you're finding that you're stuck here and that you can't find a way out, you can't seem to grow your top line sales or your bottom line revenue, please feel free to reach out. Check out danpaulsonletsgo.com. That's Dan Paulson, letsgo.com, to learn a little bit more about me and my company and what I can do to help you out. You can always reach out to me there and schedule a meeting. There's no obligation, no cost, and I might be able to provide you with some solutions that can help you get out of your own way. As far as size of the company, is it just you right now? Do you have employees? How are you scaling it?
I'm pretty much just myself for the most part, but I do have contract workers that I work with in all respects. So graphics, video, photography, manufacturing, production, fulfillment. There's different contract workers in all aspects. With $250,000, we ended up we got over our capital raise. So we got 116% over. So we did end up just over 280,000, which is great, but it's still not a lot of money when you look at running a company. Sounds, the optics of it sounds incredible as, someone's like, wow, that was amazing what you raised. But in the grand scheme of things, when you divide that between staffing, marketing, inventory, and infrastructure, it's not much. So it's going to be a very, very lean team that we have going on still going to stay with my contractors because they've been excellent. And then hopefully after we do our first capsule collection in the fall and then do our next raise, we'll be able to hire some more people. Okay, so yeah, when people say, we were actually raising 250,000 and we got 116% over our raise, which was amazing. So we ended up with just over $285,000. And it's incredible, but when you really look at a company and how it's divided between staffing, marketing, inventory, and infrastructure, it doesn't really give us that much capital, which means that we do have to keep our team really lean still. It's really going to be a very lean machine in order to operate before we get to our first capsule collection, which will be launched this fall. And then we're looking to possibly do another capital raise early next year. Okay, wow. How much are you going to try to raise on the second go around? I'm not sure yet. We'll see first how I do with our first round of sales. So I feel like it's going to be nice to be able to show investors, with the $250,000, this is what we were able to get. This is what the company was able to do with that much revenue, or how much revenue we were able to make, I should say, with the $250,000, and then go back into the next round after that. But I know to scale a company, like if you actually break it down, you really only have, around $85,000 for inventory. When you break that down into product, it's really not that much product when you're talking about colors, sizes, all that sort of thing. And where do you have to go to get your inventory? Do you get it here in the US? Do you go abroad? I make it. I design everything. So it's an actually designed brand. Most times people are stocking pieces that they buy from a catalog. I actually design all the pieces. I have the fabric milled. So most of the fabric is milled in Canada. We use all sustainable materials, so it's all eco-conscious. So eucalyptus fiber, organic cotton, rayon from bamboos, fabrics that feel incredible against your skin, and they're also very eco-conscious and good for the environment. But yeah, then I designed them into pieces that like tailored blazers, pencil skirts, dresses, all sorts of things that allow you to still have a polished look, but then you're
Hmm.
in comfy fabrics.
And everything is sewn in Canada as well, right?
Also in Canada, yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Mhm.
So what do you see for your brand going forward? You've talked about you possibly going into another capital raise. Um, do you see it eventually growing to where you have your own employees? Do you see it becoming much larger than what it is?
Yeah, 100%. I see it being competing with the top leaders in the Canadian fashion industry. I think that COVID really made that, reinforced that. I feel like there's a need for this type of clothing. People have been home for almost 2 years and they feel like they're tired of being in clothing that's not comfortable, but then they also don't want to be in their like super really comfies like joggers and pajamas. They're really ready to get dressed up a little bit too. And they say, historically, everything that happens in history, it really is outlined through fashion. And I feel like this
Mm,
blend of fitness and fashion clothing, there's no better time than right now to really hit it. And I would love to be one of the leaders in the fashion industry.
that's
There's
awesome.
also a need for it because there's no representation. Really, if you look at it, when you look at the top leaders in the fashion industry, it's generally a male dominated industry
Hmm.
and a white male dominated industry. And it's great. But when you look at it, people always say, wow, Stacey, you're so fashionable. And I say, yeah, I am, but you don't normally see leaders on the executive level that look like me. So I really want to be a representation of that for females, for minorities, to be able to be one of the top leaders and people to look at me and say, I can do it too.
Well, that's great, and it's wonderful that you're accomplishing everything that you've set out to do. I know I'm staying out of the fashion industry. I'm just not that fashion conscious, so it's good
That's
to
all
have
right.
people like you in there. So, what are some of the challenges that you see that are coming forward as you're growing the company? Obviously, there's probably challenges even after the money raise, as you pointed
Yeah.
out. It looks like a lot, but it's really not a lot, and it's got to go a long
Yeah.
ways. What are some of the other things that you see coming up as a startup in a growing business?
I think the startup is like, there's two things. One thing is I'm fortunate because I have, even though it's a startup, I have been doing it. So I
Right.
do have the ability of a lot of the challenges that I went through, finding manufacturing, milling fabrics, samples, people, the team, like all those things I have ironed out already, which those are huge
Mm.
challenges for startup companies, like trying to find how you're going to produce your products, how's it going to be, all of those things. My challenges personally right now are more in building the brand messaging, building the identity. I know what it is in me. I know what the company feels like in me. But for you to be able to understand what that is, for the masses to be able to understand what that is a whole different thing.
Hmm.
People buy experiences. They buy products, not just the products. They buy the brand. They're buying into a feeling and an essence of what that company is. And I feel like that is going to be my most difficult feat, I guess, is not just showing product, but also being able to show what does the brand mean, what does it stand for, who are the people that are part of it, so that more people want to be a part of it as well.
Yeah. So it's really getting to that why.
Yeah,
In the beginning, it's just clothing, but really it goes beyond that, and
yeah,
it's the
it's
story
so much
behind the
deeper
clothing.
than that. And the best companies, it's because people want to identify themselves with that brand. And so branding is hugely important, but like traditional branding, if you're going to do advertising, marketing, influencers, all that sort of stuff, is very expensive. So the challenge is, how do I do that on my own, knowing that I have it within me, but also let it be something that people can know and feel and see.
You cut out again.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Can
Oh,
you
you're
hear me
back.
now?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. The
okay.
last bit cut out. So you were talking about your brand and
Yeah. So can you hear me right now?
yep.
Yeah. So basically, it's about, the challenge is really about, for me, being able to know that I know the brand so clearly in my mind. I know what it stands for. I know that I want people to live now, to live their lives to their fullest effect, and to really remember where they wore me. It's kind of my tagline, where I want you to know that your clothing can capture a memory, and all of these incredible things I can see in myself. Now it's about expressing this to other people, allowing them to be able to know what that is too, so that they want to follow the Stacey Martin lifestyle brand and company and philosophy.
I think that's spot on. And that's what I tell a lot of my clients, especially when they're talking about being commoditized. Like, the reason you're commoditized is you haven't differentiated yourself, and people do buy off emotion. And then
Yeah,
they rationalize that emotion. So if you haven't connected emotionally with somebody, it's going to be very hard for them to see you as
100%.
unique.
100%. It's
Yeah.
pretty much everything. I mean, right now we have so many things in life. Like, everybody's got things. We all have clothes. Most of us
Hmm.
have clothes, and you have brands that you love, but there's something about the reason why you want that piece of clothing. What did they do? How did they make you want to buy that thing? Even when people say they're not fashionable, I've heard this before. But you're still wearing clothes.
Exactly.
Where did you buy them from, and why did you buy them? There's actually still a thing there. And so for me, it's like, it's not just about high fashion, like, models down runways. It's about everybody who's wearing clothes made a choice to purchase those clothes from somewhere. So that was that.
Say
Did
something again, Stacy.
I'm talking. I can.
Okay, now I can. I got to figure out what's going on with Zoom, because you
It's
get about
funny.
halfway
It's not
through and then
cutting
it
on
cuts
my
off.
side, but I can see your eyes go down, and then I'm like, I'm talking, but he can't hear me.
Yeah, I'm trying not to I did too much here, but well, at least that time I got most of it. But yeah, we'll keep going here. So
Sure.
so now, Stacy, tell me a little bit. I guess here's what I would like to ask. So, as a business owner, if you were talking to another business owner, whether it be a startup or somebody who's been established, what advice would you give them based on your own experience that you believe would help them grow their business?
I believe that most of our ideas are already in us. And I believe that we have to be confident enough in ourselves to be able to put it out there. And I think a lot of the times we're waiting for reinforcement from somebody else or somebody or something else to allow us to take that leap to be able to go forward to what it is. And so we'll ask a million people, and it is good to get feedback from people. But a lot of the times you actually know what it is. And so I would say, just go for it. You have to go for it. You have to try and go, and know that if it fails, you adjust. It's not a
Mhm.
failure, you just adjust. And if you got it, then you got it. And that's really what it is.
That is great advice. Most people get stuck in that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
How do you work yourself out of that? Because everyone I talk to, including myself, you go through those moments where it's like, you know what, I'm not doing anything unique, or what I do doesn't seem to be that important, or nobody wants my stuff. What
Yeah.
is it that helps you kind of get through or get out of those situations?
Yeah, I get them too. Like, I 100% get them, but I realize, it's funny because I was rebranding my company, as you know, I'm just talking about
Hmm.
this the whole time. And I said, I can't find a girl who is this and that and this and that. And then I realized it's because it's you, you know? And I was like, you can't find her because you're actually looking for you. And I just think that a lot of the times we have to stop looking at what other people are doing necessarily,
Hmm.
especially in our category. Because we'll be looking at, the person is doing fashion and she's doing it this way, and you're almost trying to do it like her.
Hmm.
But the reason why you've made your brand is to do something different. And it is because it's yours. Like, that is what it is. So I think to get out of that imposter syndrome is to actually go back within yourself and be like, what is it that I can deliver better than them or different than them?
Hmm.
That is why you made your product in the first place. Because at the end of the day, I didn't reinvent comfortable clothing, but it's really about, there are other comfortable clothing brands, but I don't do it the way they did it. I want to have some fun. I want to have some spice. I want you to like live your life. I want you to like not stop yourself from things you might have traditionally done, whereas they might market it a different way. So my way is my way, but that's already in me. So you really just have to tap into who you are authentically, and go for it, as scary as it is. And it feels hard because it's not done. because you're the only one who is you and you're not out there yet. So it's scary, but it's the only way. It's the only thing, really.
That's great. Stacey, thanks for taking the time with me today. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful to have you here. And, we've learned a lot from you, and it's going to be fun following you through this process. So where can people find you?
So you can go onto my social media on Instagram at Stacey Martin Lifestyle. And my personal hashtag is, or my personal link, is at designer Stacey Martin. And then our website is staceymartinlifestyle.com, and that will be releasing clothes probably in the early fall.
Nice. Well, good. We will have to check it out then. So Stacey, thanks again for taking the time to meet with me today. It's been wonderful. And we'll love to follow you. And maybe this fall, let's come back and let's talk about some of the things that you've done over the past several months to launch your brand, and maybe do a mini fashion show. Who knows?
That would be great.
Help some poor slob like me get more fashion savvy.
You never know. You might be wearing Stacey Martin Lifestyle soon.
All right. Thanks, Stacey.
Okay, take care.
Thanks again for checking out Successful Not Satisfied. Hopefully there's something you learned and you're able to take away and use in your own company. Check out our next episode in the coming weeks. And also, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, KGI Design Group. They have been instrumental in helping put these podcasts and many other things together for us. They do a lot of my graphics and my branding. And if you need help with that, I urge you to contact them. KGIDesignGroup.com. Thanks again.